Hey everyone. Welcome to the From Chaos to Clarity Unleash Your Business Potential podcast live Q&A, also known as the after party. Right? I'm your
Uh,
host, Sonya Jones of GIP Financials, or Mr. Miyagi of Money. And I appreciate y'all coming on. So just I always like to, remind our audience about our new podcast cadence. So as in the before we were doing weekly podcasts, but then we had to kind of back out a little bit and do bi-weekly, podcasts. And then we noticed that the engagement was kind of dwindling. So we said, you know what, let's do something new. So in between the pre-recorded podcast, we're going to add live Q&As to give our audience, opportunity to come and ask, questions and things like that. And so last Thursday, we had the honor of having Miss Jackie Mercer talking about Wave, right?
bless
Accounting software. Because everybody just, QuickBooks is not the only option. And especially if we're trying to, know our numbers, we have to be able to, be comfortable in the accounting software that fits our businesses,
you.
right? So we just got to be fair with that. And so Jackie did an amazing, extremely thorough job. So if you guys have not watched that episode, y'all have to watch it on YouTube. I'm gonna be honest. Y'all watch it, don't do it justice just by listening to it. You gotta watch that thing on YouTube because she broke it all the way down. Right. And
Right.
so we are going to tonight just talk a little bit about the recap and also just share a couple, best practices about accounting software in general. Right.
Yeah.
So, hey, Jackie.
Hey, Sonia. Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. Like you said, Wave is a alternative of other things that are out in the market. We do know that QBO is I mean, it's popular. It's the go-to for a lot. But Wave for me is my go-to when it makes sense. So yeah, let's get into some best practices.
All right. Yes, ma'am. So let's do a little recap
Okay.
of just a small recap
Okay.
because, like I
Okay.
said, this the after party. So y'all should have already watched. We
Yeah.
ain't gonna redo that. All right. And so we talked definitely about Wave software. And Jackie, can you just again just tell everyone kind of like which businesses are best suited for Wave?
Yes, yes, yes. So, like I said, the after party. So I kind of started off with just kind of a tier approach on how to think about Wave and who is it the best fit. So the first tier was the do-it-yourselfer. So, if you're a business owner and you're maybe 2 years in business or so, and you don't want to use Excel or a Google Sheets or an elaboration of Excel or just pen and paper, then Wave is good if you are service based, do it yourself under 2 years, 2 years or less. And the reason why I gave that time cap is because typically there's not a lot of transactions in terms of loans, assets, etc. So also it's service based because when you get into inventory and tracking beginning and ending inventory, you actually have to do journal entries in Wave to make that correct. And so with that, you need, unless you have, some experience with it, um, really need someone professional to help guide you through that. So that was the first tier, do it yourself, first service based, 2 years or less in business. The next tier was service based. It's a really good fit. But as you get more into your business, as everyone knows, that when you start having employees and you have to have, payroll taxes accounted for, if you go through different entity structures like S corping, and you have to split out the owner shared, and that Wave is good for that, service based, but not in a do-it-yourself mode. And then those again with inventory, it can fit, but just make sure you know what you're doing, or you invest in someone that does. Who it is not a good fit for, the businesses that is not a good fit for are the nonprofits. And that's primarily because of the reporting limitations in Wave. Wave is great for three basic reports, or basic, I say, foundational reports, which is your profit and loss, your balance sheet, and your cash flows. There's a few more, but those three essential reports, Wave does a pretty good job at those reports. But when you get into needing to see the reports and by class and sliced and diced and the Mahagi style, for Sonya, then that's not really a good fit because Wave does not have the feature to slice and dice your data. It's going to categorize it, summarize it, make a pretty report, give your logo. But when it comes into the reporting, even the monthly trends, you have to add on a Google Sheet. So that's, a lot of times with nonprofits, what happens is you have to report those financials to a board, and that board member, those board members like to see different things. Not all of them, but some of them.
Right.
So that's when it's not necessarily a good fit. And also those in the construction industry, because of the project tracking and cost tracking, things of that sort, Wave is not a good fit for that. But if you service-based business, starting out business, it is a really good fit. Lower cost option. It did used to be free. It is not anymore, unless you already had it and you were grandfathered into their program.
Right. So thank you for that. And I know like when we were on the session together, the pre-recorded session, I know that that was one of the things that actually, let's take it back further. When we had our initial conversation, that's why
Mhm.
I still thought Wave was free, and that is not the case now. Right. But yet it is definitely still affordable. I would definitely say
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
for sure. So let's talk a little bit about two I guess as far as like accounting best practices, because I'm trying to think in my PowerPoint Rolodex, like what I will talk
Yeah.
about. So when we're talking about accounting software in general, a couple things that I share with my folks, Jack, is just one, we talk about when you're looking for accounting software, you got to be very intentional about your software. Why do you need it? Because like
Mhm.
you had mentioned before, like say if you're a for-profit, right? If you're a
Mhm.
startup, not, for profit, or if you're a for profit that has payroll, you want to make sure that your accounting software to a certain extent can, grow with you, right?
Mhm.
Or have certain features that you need, at least for right now, maybe a couple of notches,
Mhm.
down the road. For my nonprofit folks, I always recommend you got to have accounting software that has budgeting. That's a
Yeah.
non-negotiable,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Mhm.
Because it's a part of, because what you have to do within your organization, and you mentioned the reporting as well. And then another thing that I talk about as well is like access. Like
Mm. Yeah.
who should have
Yes.
access to
Yes.
your accounting software? Because especially like, hey, nonprofits, I still love y'all, but I'm gonna talk about y'all. So especially when we have like consultations, and I say this because there are a lot of the accounting firms that still use QuickBooks Desktop. So I want to
Yeah.
make sure I pay context, right? I won't throw anybody under the bus, right? And so when they come to talk to us and they say that they're using QuickBooks,
Mhm.
first question I ask after that is, do you have access to your QuickBooks account? A lot
Mhm.
of times they say, we can have access to it.
Mm. Yeah.
I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Ah."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so just being able to distinguish between QuickBooks Desktop,
Mm.
QuickBooks Online, things like that. And then more importantly, now even with QuickBooks Desktop, because when I was working for, our charter school and the
Mhm.
accounting firm that we had, they had a special like virtual like desktop, some type of thing where
Mhm.
you can log in through a VPN and
Okay.
access, QBD. So that was cool, but that cost,
Yeah.
right? Because that
Yeah.
was a hosting thing.
Mhm.
However, if you're using like QuickBooks Online or even like with Wave, you want to make sure that certain individuals have access. One being you. You
Mhm.
should always have, as the owner, should
Right.
always have access to your software, and definitely have um authoritative access to where you can kick folk out. Right,
Yes.
especially if
Yeah.
you're engaging in between, companies. Go ahead, Jack. You gonna say something?
Well, so my take on that is, yes. So if, yeah, for your business, whoever's doing your bookkeeping, yeah, could give you access, or vice versa. If you have a tool and you want to add your bookkeeper to your tool, and I've seen it both ways. I personally, work it both ways. My
Mhm.
watch out with the access is when the business owner has access and starts duplicating or trying to work in tandem with me, and that's when the mistakes start, and so either communication needs to happen, or you know preferably if you hire someone to do the service, please, let them do it. That has been the only con that I've seen with this, Sonia. And so I have to give very big watch outs of, like, yes, this is your data. I'm just providing the service. But understand that if you go in, or if you get a email from the service provider and you go in understanding the email one way but mess things up, everything is fixable, but of course it is a service, and then now it's also a fee. So that's the watch
Mhm.
out. So definitely have
Mhm.
access to your data. Primarily, anything, if you want to move to another, professional, or if the professional moves and do something else, so you want access to your data. And like you said, Sonia, who on your team do you want to have access on your data, to your data? So if you have an admin or something like that, you want to make sure that, one, they're keeping that data confidential, because there the data that comes through a ledger is very confidential. So you have to have, outside of even the software, but an agreement with your team to keep the data confidential, because
Mhm.
they'll be seeing things as part of their role. So that's the other watch out with access.
Right, absolutely. And I would definitely recommend, if you're not familiar with that, that you get with a professional to discuss like the person's role,
Mhm.
because especially like in QuickBooks, and I'm pretty sure Wave has this too, that even with the access, there's a certain level of access depending on the
Mhm.
function that that person has,
Yep.
right? Because you don't want to be giving, the person that's doing accounts receivable or accounts payable
Yeah.
full admin access.
Hmm.
Right,
Hmm.
they'll have access to everything, so you gotta be very, very cautious about that, and, I got a funny story too. We're talking about, clients going in there
Hmm.
and in the books, and so we had a client, and so and I will say like this, I think with this particular client, I think it was about behavior, right?
Hmm.
So if they looked in QuickBooks and saw that, certain transactions weren't in there maybe for a certain amount of time, now we will tell them, like we normally try to keep, the prior month's books reconciled and stuff by
Hmm.
the 15th of the current month, right?
Hmm.
But if they're, going in there, they might say, well, what's going on? I'm gonna start categorizing,
Yeah, yeah,
stuff
exactly.
like that.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so we had to do the close the books ministry,
Mhm.
password
Yeah,
ministry
yes,
on those books, because like you said, we because we thought, things were going one way, and all it takes is one action and
that's it.
make the whole dominoes fall.
That's
Right.
it.
Yeah, we have to
That's
go back in and clean it up. And like you said, we got to charge for that because
it.
technically that's a cleanup.
Mhm.
Right.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah. And so, right. So on certain financial statements, some amounts are cumulative, so they build off each other, and you could
Mhm.
have like a $5 variance, but that $5 came from so many different variances to get there. Or you can have a P&L impact and just classify it different, but by the time you run your reports, oh, well, in Q1, it said I spent this much in contract labor, but in Q
Mhm.
one on this report is saying a whole different figure. So it can completely change your reporting. So yeah,
Right.
so that's the watch out with assets.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another thing that we mentioned too that's really important is for business owners, and I'm pretty sure most all of our business owners now are using some level of, POS software or,
Mhm.
merchant account software, things like that, payment processors, third payment processors and things like that. I know that Jack and I talked about too before you as you're using those things, think twice or talk to a professional before you think about integrating or connecting that platform to your accounting software, because especially if you're just going in thinking that you're trying to make everything efficient, but
Mhm.
then if you don't know what you're doing, you're duplicating transactions, and then it can be an easy mess, like a
Yeah.
2 cent. As soon as you integrate, it's like boom,
Yeah.
like a big
Big
old
mess.
mess.
Big
Yeah.
mess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, with those
Yeah.
integrations. And
Mm-hmm.
speaking of best practices in merchant processors, my biggest watch out is PayPal. I love PayPal from a consumer standpoint, but from a
Mm-hmm.
business standpoint, the watch out is PayPal tries to act like its own bank within its feature. So it bundles all of your transactions. So when you have that pay with funds, so if you have some funds left from a return or sale or something, then PayPal is like, oh, if you're getting ready to buy this, you can just use what's in the bank, what's used in the
Right.
account. So then what happens on the reporting is it's a big bundle transaction. You have an expense in there, a revenue in there, and their fee. And so as bookkeepers, we have to peel all of that back for each
Yeah.
individual transaction. So with PayPal, I tell my client base, it's fine to use, but do not use that feature where you can pay with funds that's already in there, because otherwise it's
Right.
going to just put everything in a big ball. So um,
Absolutely.
that's a watch out. And then PayPal also has funding that they offer, their customers. So the reports are, when you see those payments come in, you have to know that it's a payment that goes against a loan.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the watch out. I think my biggest thing has been with PayPal in terms of being a watch out and just making sure that how to
Mm-hmm.
use that. So I think again, great on a consumer end, but some watch outs from a business perspective.
Yeah, I would agree with that. 'Cause we had a couple of clients, same type of thing, especially
Hmm.
with that capital with
Hmm.
Shopify.
Hmm.
Right? Because from the naked eye, right?
Hmm.
A lot of people just see Shopify and don't see Shopify Capital, right?
Hmm.
You just think it's an expense.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Yeah.
then, yeah, just like you said, we have to go back and pull that actual report, because we have to see how much you actually borrowed. We have to put that on the balance sheet as a
Yep.
liability and have to, do all
Yep.
that good stuff. And yeah, it can be pretty tedious, because all the the business owners thinking about, who child, I need some money.
Right. The
I need to
capital.
fill in
They're
the
thinking about
gap.
the working capital.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of, moving parts on the back end, because it's very similar to, also because if you're, using it like, merchant,
Hmm.
fees, stuff like that, like we had talked about before. If somebody's, purchasing something off of your online store, right, or on PayPal, and you get the payout in your business checking account, it's
Hmm.
only telling a portion of the story,
Hmm.
right? Because you're
Yeah.
just, getting the payout. We still
Yep.
got to go on the back end and record the gross amount and expense, the merchant fees. And we actually had a client recently, made very good money,
Hmm.
but if they would have went to just the regular, tax preparer, somebody that wasn't taking care of that bookkeeping, they would have missed out on over $13,000 in merchant account fees.
Oh, wow, exactly, and then they would have
Mhm.
overstated their income as well,
Oh,
right?
right,
Yeah,
exactly,
so,
exactly.
yeah, that's very key, and so, like, you missed the entire tax, deduction, and, I incorporate, taxes with my services as well, and, but there's some that I don't do the bookkeeping on, and that
Mhm.
is one of the most common missed tax deductions. Are like, hey, how do your customers receive? How do you receive money from your customers? Even whether it's Cash App, whether it's Square, whether it's Clover, it's a fee.
Mhm.
So and it's typically around 3% of the sale. So it could be a good deduction that's missed, as well as when we were talking about the capital piece, your interest. So
Mhm,
when you're
yeah,
paying interest on these Shopify's and PayPal, like that's a big hunk of it, and it's tax
mhm.
deductible.
It
So
is tax deductible. That's exactly right. So I hope y'all write this information
yeah.
down. Hope y'all write it down because I just, a matter of fact, last Thursday, Jackie and I were both teaching workshops. She was at G Work and I was at Memphis Medical District Collaborative, and I had actually brought that up, and one of the guys in the back was like, "I'm going to get my taxes amended."
As he should. Yes. Yes.
'Cause I was like, now make sure that that whatever, when you get that review, make sure that it's,
Mhm.
um, that it makes sense to do that. He was like, no, I'm gonna get it amended. I know how much the fees were.
Yeah, they're hefty. They're
Right.
hefty. I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, they definitely make you pay for the convenience of receiving the money.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So, like I said, this is why you need bookkeeping, y'all.
Yes.
This is why you need
Yeah.
bookkeeping. Yeah.
And you mentioned the workshop. So one thing
Yeah.
that I was explaining in my workshop is when do you know you need a professional? Um,
Mm.
between do it yourself and when is it time to actually start looking into a professional? And some of the guidance that I provided was, hey, you might be an accountant yourself, you might be a finance professional yourself, but when you are so heavy in your operations, it's not a matter of knowing or not knowing. It's a matter of giving it to a resource and investing in a resource that has the time, because you will miss something.
Mhm.
Um, Also, some other guidance I gave in terms of when it's time to hire a professional is, similar, years in business when you start having those more complex transactions, like we talked about,
Mhm.
things to look for in a professional bookkeeper. Like you definitely want someone that is going to keep your data secure, your confidentiality agreements, the
Mhm.
actual data itself secure. So we talked a little bit about also when you're ready, and what do you look for in the professional, and like you said, the software, talk about what software makes the most sense. Do you have a preference? Are you migrating from another one where we have to integrate? So all of those things are things to consider.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm gonna throw you a question, Jackie,
Mhm.
since you had mentioned about tax prep and bookkeeping.
Uh-huh.
So how do you approach that? Say if I'm a prospective client.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Child Jackie, I heard you was some fire, and I need some taxes. I need my taxes done." And you like, "Sis, what paperwork you got?" Girl, I got all my bank statements. I'm being real good. You just like, that's not. I need. Do you use accounting software? Do you have the?
Mhm.
And we're like, "Girl, what's that?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you approach that? Because I'm asking that because we talk about that a lot too, because that's a common myth that people assume that when you're getting your taxes done, especially
Mhm.
business taxes, that the bookkeeping is being done too, and that's not always the case.
Mm-mm,
You got to
mm-mm.
ask for that, and that's actually it's a separate service, y'all.
Yes, it
It's
is.
two separate services. So how do you approach that?
Yeah. So if it's someone that is coming to me outside of the tax season, then as part of our overview of the services, we talk about that. Like that's
Mhm.
part of um, you have a seamless tax season because you've been receiving bookkeeping services all through the year. By the way, bookkeeping services usually save about 50% in tax deductions. So
Mhm.
as from what I've seen in terms of the work that's been in front of me. Um, Now, if it's someone that is coming in from, uh, that hasn't been receiving bookkeeping services, so as part of my intake process for the taxes, there is a section at the end that says, "Do you have bookkeeping? Are you interested in bookkeeping? If you are, then let's set up a time to talk about it." Now, for that particular season, if it makes sense, we may extend just with an estimate and just pay in with the estimate. If it doesn't, then we just pick it up the next year.
Hmm. Good, good, good deal. So I wanted to make sure that you heard it from another professional about how that is handled.
Yes, yeah,
Because,
yes,
yeah,
yes. Yeah, they
absolutely.
are separate services.
Gotcha. So I wanted to pause for the calls. I know
Mhm.
that we had a couple of guests that came in. So yeah, thank you guys for coming in. If you have any questions, feel free to put your questions in the chat. Um, and all that good stuff. So yeah, so let's give it about maybe 10 more minutes. So 'cause we've been on since 7:30.
Mhm.
And I want to make sure also if you again have not checked out the video, matter of fact, let me do this while I still got YouTube on. I want to put the link to the wave video in the actual chat for you guys so you guys can take a peek at it um while we're talking. And so while I'm pulling that up, Jackie, can you just give a brief snapshot of the class that you taught last week? I know you just gave a little bit about cash flow.
Yeah.
Tell us, girl, what you taught.
Yeah, absolutely. So G work. Yes, I did a class on it. It was called Cash Flow Confidence, and it was targeted towards business owners and quite honestly, how bookkeeping relates to keeping more cash in your pockets, right? As a business owner. So I started out with just like the top 20 tips in how bookkeeping relates to cash in your pocket. So it ranged from everything from um, identifying your tax deductions, making sure that you are in compliance with your taxes, so you're not getting surprise fines and penalties 2 or 3 years later after you file returns or not file returns. So we started with the top 20 ways to keep cash in your pocket. We also talked about how to prepare for the tariff increases, which is a very current topic, hot topic now. So we talked about some strategies there. Pinnacle Bank was there also. So we kind of, they share some of their experiences with their clients and how it impacts funding and things like that. Like I mentioned earlier, we talked about when does it make sense to hire a professional bookkeeper. Talk about the three key financial statements that Wave also generates. Like I said, the balance sheet, the income statement, and the cash flows. I gave a high level. Your profit and loss is how much you've earned. Your balance sheet is how much you've worked. And I always describe the cash flow as if these two got married, cash flow is the baby that they produce, with
You.
no depreciation or anything like that. So it's really
Yeah.
just all the cash in the business. So we kind of talked about that. We also talked about software systems. So we, talked about Wave, we talked about QuickBooks, we talked about the pros and cons between them.
Good.
So for example, Wave, one of the pros is the cost. It's $16 per month. QBO, one of the cons is the cost. But one of the pros to QBO was the robust reporting and the integration. That's one of the cons of Wave. So just to understand those, and then just mention a couple of other tools in the market like FreshBooks and Zero and Sage, just in terms of if they wanted to research those as well. So we talked about that. Um, and I think those were like the hot topics that we discussed. And then just missed tax deductions, most common missed tax deductions. So things like the home office deduction, um, the like we talked about merchant fees, interest, things like that. And then a little bit about tax strategy, employing your children, when it makes sense to S corp is kind of what we wrapped up on. And so it was a very informative session. I think everybody walked away insightful, including me. So that's what the workshop was about. Yeah.
So good. I
Yes.
love it, love it. And I loved how it made me smile when you were talking about the reporting and saying
Yeah.
cash flow was the baby of the P and
Yeah.
the balance sheet. Because I talk about it like a tree, right?
Okay. Okay.
Like the balance sheet is the trunk, the
Uh-huh.
profit and loss is the leaves and the fruit, right? Like
Okay.
the apple tree. And then the cash flow is the water that, feeds the tree and stuff like that. So it's
Oh,
always
nice.
good to hear how
Yes,
people,
yes.
hear
And
people
and
talk about it.
it is. And one thing, yeah, that we talked about as well, because of my memory, um, is that cash is greater than profit. So you can be a
That's
profitable
true.
business. But if you are out there and you have all this interest you're paying on your loans, or you're doing excessive owner draws, it's taken away from your margin, you can have a profit on the books, but
Mhm.
If your cash is going into different places because, or you could just have inventory that's not turning. If all of
Right.
that activity is on your balance sheet, you can have a profit, but your cash is on your balance sheet as well. So,
Right. Exactly.
so we talked about that, and we talked about a budgeting method as well, and
Mhm.
kind of, how some business owners just get out there and like, okay, well, I'm making the revenue, so I want to just invest in my business. But you kind of got to pause and say,
Mhm.
um, what costs are your direct costs with your gross margin,
Mhm.
so you'll actually know what your cost to deliver is, and then after that, kind of what are your operating expenses, what do I need to pay myself,
Right.
paying myself first, then
Mhm.
getting those expenses, and a cap on those, and also keeping a
Right.
cash reserve, and keeping something aside for taxes, because you do not
Right.
want that tax bill at April 15th, and you have not put anything away. And and actually by compliance, you are supposed to be paying in after a certain tax liability threshold anyway. So you're already out of compliance if you're
Mhm.
surprised and not paying anything. So we talked
Mhm.
about that as well. So
Right. I'm telling you, you be like,
very good workshop.
oh,
Right.
hey, you're
So,
full
yeah,
WWE in this thing.
I
Yeah.
know, I know, I know. So yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Mhm.
So you guys, I hope that you got some good information out of this. And again, I put the link to the Wave video in the chat. I appreciate you guys popping in, taking
Yeah,
a listen to what we were talking about.
yeah,
And Jackie, again, I appreciate you as always.
yes.
You will not be a stranger. I hope you know that we're gonna come back again.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, yeah, we and you would not be a stranger to me, because we you have mentioned something that you're working on that I'm very excited, as that builds up. And then, we have to do breakfast or lunch or something again real soon too. So
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
yes.
So yeah, so the what Jackie is talking about, we are going today is April 24th, so we are actually going to announce it May the 1st.
Oh, okay,
We're
okay.
going to
So
announce
okay.
it.
So I
So we're
gave a
gonna
little teaser.
a
Okay.
little tease. You got a little tease what the young people be doing like this. You be
Yes.
doing that. Right.
Big things are happening.
Yeah, so we're just, just making sure that we are, adding value and listening to what, our audience wants to hear. So we're just trying to marry, that and, what we're trying to do. Here's the hint, because if nothing else, the two things that we always get questions about is never about bookkeeping. It's always about taxes and grants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's always about taxes and grants.
And your
Go ahead.
bookkeeping is the base for both of those.
It is. Say it again, Jack. Say it again.
Your bookkeeping is the base for both of those. So you can't have those things without your bookkeeping.
Can't.
Yeah.
We're supposed to ask you all the time. Uh, how much you asking for? Why do you need it? You
Mhm.
got to show them folks
Yeah.
that that you've invested in your business.
Mhm.
And because you have to be able to justify the spend. We
Mhm.
say that over and over again. They just be like, "Ooh, child, here's a grant. It's free money. This is gonna come out the sky, and I'm just gonna
Yeah.
hold it and love it and pet
Right.
it
Yeah.
and everything else." Like, no, that's not how it
Don't we
goes.
wish?
Right? Don't we wish? Right, I know
Yeah.
that's right. So yeah, so we want to make sure that we always come with a hands-on approach.
Mhm.
And if you ever been to a GIP workshop, we are always hands-on, and we're gonna sit there with you and make sure that you get it. So this is actually our first formal in-person workshop that we are hosting.
Okay.
So we're excited about this. So just be ready. If you're not on the email list, you better go gipfinancials.com and get on our email list so you can get updated on the big announcement. Yep. So any closing remarks, Jackie, that you have, let everybody know how they can get in touch with you.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess so. Closing remarks is first is just, we kind of talked about it. Your bookkeeping is foundational. A business, and it's not, it's tedious. It's not the funnest thing to do. but it is necessary. You cannot scale your business, you cannot sustain your business, you cannot, even though if you are making a profit and loss, you definitely cannot make any strategic decisions. And like we said, you are most likely missing out on tax deductions and grant opportunities without it. So it is a foundation to your business. So, we, and Sonia, I know you see, we see a lot of things that you are investing in. And when you are not investing in the right tools to sustain your business, grow your business, scale your business, then you're really missing out. So really, if you're listening, I know this is about, a Wave as well, and that all incorporates into the same thing. Wave is a software to help you with the bookkeeping. Okay. That's one of my last closing. That is my last closing remark. Do not let any software out there in the market replace the actual service. It is a supplement to the service to make it more efficient. So whether you're doing it yourself, whether you are hiring a professional, make sure you understand how the background of that software is supposed to be working, because it could really mess you up in terms of your taxes, your grant opportunities. So that would be my closing remark. I am on Instagram under Baldwin underscore financial underscore services. That is, you can go to that page, and there's also a contact me link in the bio to get to my website. And from there, there's a contact me as well. So if there are any questions about Wave that we did not address today, definitely you can reach out to me and I can give you some insight. But again, and I just want to thank Sonia. We talked about it on the podcast. Collaboration is everything. So I really, really appreciate you and inviting me into your platform. So I thank you for that.
Anytime.
Mhm.
And I just want y'all to know, as far as like when we're building, community, especially around, in the finance space, as you can see, like we all share, a particular gift and specialty, right? And so that's one of the things that I want to make sure at GIP Financials that we always do. We're always going to put people in front of you, one that are experts and that we trust, right? To help you get the job done. And that's not always going to be us, right?
Mhm.
But like I said, we just want to be extremely realistic
Mhm.
when it comes to serving, small business owners and nonprofits, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to see you win. Right.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. So again, y'all, we appreciate it so, so much. Next Thursday, May the 1st,
Mhm.
you are going to hear from grant writer, Miss Victoria Ravenel of
Nice.
DMV Consulting. So y'all want to talk about grants. I
Mhm.
found a grant writer,
All
a
right.
whole
Nice.
grant writer. So I want to make sure everybody gonna be at that one, right? And then we're on I want to say she's not gonna be available May the 8th, but I think it's May the 6th for the after party for that one. So I'll make sure if you're not on the email list, what you waiting on? I don't know what you waiting on. Cause our whole May calendar already sold up. So that's a first for us because I'm just trying to get things together. I'm trying to get better.
Yeah, hey, we all are. We all are. Yo, book calendar is. Whew,
Yep,
I
absolutely.
know that sounds like a great workshop. That sounds like
It
a
is.
great.
It's gonna be very, very great.
I mean, podcast, and then
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. So yeah, we like I said, we're trying to make sure that we bring on folks that we know are going to pique everyone's interest because especially now that tax season, at least the first wave of tax season
yeah,
is kind of right.
yes,
So now
yeah.
we want to talk about, grants and stuff like that. Oh, and by the way, state of Tennessee, Arkansas, if you have not heard, you should have heard by now. We got an extension beyond the October extension, so November the 3rd. But don't make that as an excuse for you to sit on your behind and get this stuff filed. Got dog it.
That's right. Yes, exactly, exactly. And not only the filing, but the payment as well. So
Yes, and the
I was
payment. Yes.
very, very grateful for that. And I know a lot of people were. So yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And nonprofits, Merry Christmas from the Temptations. If your fiscal year ends December 31st, your May 990 has been extended to November. So Merry Christmas from the Temptations. So let's make sure to say that as well. All right then, cool. So yeah, we're gonna let you get back to it. Thank y'all for hanging out with us. And like I said, stay informed for the next podcast. Jackie, thank you. And we will see you guys on the next one. Take care, y'all.
Bye. Thanks.